Hello friends, how are you? I hope all of you are doing really good. So welcome to Economics of Finance Excellency batch. Okay, so what we have been discussing about, we have been discussing about the fiscal policies, right? And in this particular video, we are going to end this chapter. So we have studied all about this fiscal policies, the types of fiscal policies, the instruments of fiscal policies, we have all studied about, right? So in this video, what we are going to study about is, we are going to study about our next topic. Now, this topic heading is wrong in the book, right? So, fiscal policy in the long run economic growth is already done. So, the topic here is the fiscal policy for reduction in distribution of income and wealth. Fiscal policy for reduction in distribution, not distribution, inequalities. Sorry, reduction in inequalities in distribution. Inequalities in distribution of income and wealth, right? So this is the topic heading is misprinted here, so you can just correct it out, right? So when we talk about the fiscal policy, we say that the fiscal policies are aimed at the welfare of the economy, right? And this again is a part of welfare of economy. When we say that the inequalities of income and wealth, if they are prevailing in the economy, is it the economic welfare? No, sir, right? So you need to, the government aims at reducing these inequalities, that these inequalities should not be there. There should be equal distribution of income and wealth. Everyone has the right to the basics of the life, right? So fiscal policy can play a vital role in the redistribution of income so as to ensure the social justice. Redistribution of income means taking the income from the rich and redistributing them to the poor, right? So that there is equal distribution of income and wealth in the economy. It should not be concentrated only in the few hands, right? So fiscal policy has the direct through taxes as well as indirect impact through other fiscal policy measures on the income distribution, that we right, what the government is going to do, the government is going to say all the rich people who have lots and lots of money pay higher taxes, and with those higher taxes they will make sure that the right facilities, the right policies are made, that the income or in one form or the other reaches the poor people or the needy people, right? So we say that the government can use the following measures to achieve the desired distribution of income and wealth. One is the progressive direct tax system. Higher the income, higher the taxes, right? Ensures that the taxes are based on the ability to pay and the tax burden is distributed fairly among the population, that all those who have high income, they are paying the high taxes, and using those higher taxes, the income is distributed to the lower strata of the economy, right? Then the indirect taxes can be differential, like the commodities mainly consumed by the rich can be taxed heavily. For example, the luxury goods. In case of GST, we say on the luxury goods, it can go up to 40%, more than 40%, right? And while those consumed by the lower income groups, general people, like the necessities, they can be taxed light, or there can be 0% tax on that, right? For example, the pulses. On pulses, on some in some way there is a 0% tax also, and in some other way there is a 5% tax maximum, right? If there is branding and packaging, all those things. So public expenditure policy, this policy helps in redistributing the income from the rich to the poor through spending programs targeted on the welfare measures. So government says we will take the taxes from the rich and redistribute among the poor through the various programs, welfare programs, right? What can be that? The poverty alleviation programs can be there. And with the money that is collected through taxes from the rich, the free or the subsidized medical care, education, housing, food, all these things will be provided. The infrastructure provision on the selective basis, various social security schemes like the old age pension, etc., subsidized production of mass consumption goods, public production or providing the subsidies for the supply of essential goods, strengthening the human capital for enhancing the employability. Redistributive fiscal policy needs to be consistent with the macroeconomic policy objectives, that is, with the overall objectives of the economy. They should be in line with that. right? So all these things are what? These are the various social security schemes, social welfare and security schemes, right? How these schemes work? Sir, the government take the taxes from the higher income people. With those taxes, the government is able to provide these schemes. The government is able to run the various schemes under the various schemes, like unemployment compensation can be one of the schemes. The government taking the tax from the rich people. Now they say those who are unemployed, even they have the right to the basic things. They have the right to the food. Only then they will be able to survive. And whose responsibility it is? It is the government's responsibility, because they themselves don't have the money, right? So government say, from whatever the taxes we are collecting from the rich people, with that we are going to run these particular schemes and make sure that either the money reaches the people in some part, like the unemployment compensation, or the basic necessities reach the right people, right? Basic necessities like the food is there, shelter is there, they have the basic necessities for the survival, right? All this is done through these fiscal policies. So this was another topic, that is fiscal policy for reduction in inequalities in distribution of income and wealth. Now, next is limitations of the fiscal policy. Sir, there can be various limitations, because what is the main role of fiscal policy? That identifying the problem, right, related to money, taking the corrective action through the various policies. Now, in this huge population, in this such a huge world, it is very difficult to identify where actually the problem is, right? Or there can be a lag in identifying the problem. Once identified, then making the policy will take time. Once the policy is made, implementation of that policy will take time because of the various procedures, isn't it? By the time all these things happen, right, half of the problem has really aggravated, and the people might be dying because of hunger. Let's say hunger is one of the problems, isn't it? So the various types of lags are involved in the fiscal policy action. It shows down the entire process. These lags are as follows. It slows down the entire process. Recognition lag, delay in recognition of the problem for which the policy action is required. As I told you, that in such a huge population, in such a country of huge population, it is very difficult to go deeper and identifying the problem where actually the problem exists, right? Then is the decision lag, lag in taking the decision about the most suitable policy out of the possible ones, right? So you have to decide that for this particular, let's say you identified the problem. After the problem has been identified, you need to choose that which policy is going to best serve this problem, right? There can be multiple choices among that, and again this is a difficult task, isn't it? Right, sir? Then is the implementation lags, the lags in the process of implementation, such as bureaucracy, legislations. There are so many procedures involved in it, so many permissions involved in it, which can lead to the lag in implementation. Impact lag, the lag in obtaining the desired impact from the chosen policy. There may be a lag in obtaining the desired impact because of all the above lags, right? So there are chances of the fiscal policy being executed at the wrong times due to the above lags, right? There exist difficulties due to the rapidly changing government policies. The government policies keep on changing from time to time, and another thing, even the governments keep on changing from time to time, and that is again a headache. Frequently changing the governments or the unstable political situation. That is what I'm saying, right? So one government will say, no, I will run this policy. Another government will come. Let's say by the time it was all the permissions were done and it was the time for the implementation of that policy, another government comes into the place, and that government says, this scheme is absolutely rubbish, scrap of this scheme, we will think of something new, right? So this is what, sir, and this is actually the real scenario in our country if you look at. So may result in the chaotic conditions. It is practically difficult to reduce the public spending on the certain things. Obviously, it is difficult. On the basics, how can you reduce the public spending? Not possible. There are difficulties of the precise forecasting regarding the business cycle and choosing the accurate policy to be undertaken. Right? All these policies are undertaken keeping in view the future needs of the country. So it is very difficult to precisely forecast the future, that what will be the needs, what will be required or what will not be required. So it is very difficult for that, right? So there are possible conflicts between the different objectives of the fiscal policy, right? There can be conflicts. One objective, if you look at the societal welfare, then maybe the business might be suffering. If you look for the business, the society might be suffering. So there can be the conflicts regarding that, right? So he says there can be conflicts between the various components of the fiscal policy, various objectives, various different objectives of the fiscal policy. Supply side economists believe that certain fiscal actions act as disincentives to the growth. Supply side means from the point of view of the manufacturers or the producers. They say certain fiscal policies are aimed at, disincentive. The manufacturer, the producer will not be incentivized. They will not be motivated to produce, and accordingly, there will be no growth, right? So these were the certain limitations of the fiscal policy. Now, the last topic is the crowding out effect. What is crowding out effect? When spending by the government in an economy replaces the private spending, the latter is said to be crowded out. When the whole of the spending, the whole of expenditure, whatever is required for boosting the economy, everything is being done by the government, right? And there is nothing left for the private players to spend on. That is known as crowding out. Private players are crowded out. But is it a good situation? No, sir. Actually, in an economy, there should always be a mixed spending, right? Some by the government, some by the private players. So it has to be a mixed spending, right? So crowding out effect is a negative effect that a fiscal policy may generate when money from the private sector is crowded out to the public sector. So everything is in the hands of public sector. For example, if the government provides free computers to the students, then what will happen? Will the students be demanding that computer from some other company which is a private player? No, sir, because now they are getting everything from the government, right? Then who is going to buy the computer from those private players? They are crowded out. From the student section, they are crowded out, right? The demand from the students for computers may not be forthcoming, right? If all the students, let's say the government provides laptops to all the students, then why the students will demand the laptop from the outside players or the private players? We can say HP, Dell, Lenovo. Who is going to buy those laptops? No. So they are what? They are crowded out from the student market because of the government expenditure, right? It reduces the economy's ability to self-correct from the recession and also the prospect of the long-run economic growth. Sir, when there is not going to be any demand, then how can the economy grow? How can the economy self-correct it from the recession? No, right? The government increases its spending by the borrowing funds from market, pushing up the demand and interest rates. So how the government is doing the expenditure? They will borrow funds from the market, right? See, the intention of the government is good, right? Distributing this laptops, if you look at this example, distributing the laptops among the students, this is a fiscal policy because the government says that each and every student is able to study, right? And they can go ahead in their career. But at the same time, this is having a negative impact on the private sector that is being crowded out. Thus, the decline in the private spending partially or completely offset the expansion in the demand resulting from an increase in the government expenditure. So, by government expenditure, there is an increase in demand, right? But at the same time, because the private sector is crowded out, the people will not be demanding much more and more and more. Private sector is not manufacturing because there is no demand, right? So, there is an offset. On one side, the government is doing the expenditure to increase the aggregate demand. On the other side, there is no expenditure from the private sector because it has been crowded out and there is no demand for the private sector goods. So that is what the offset of the demand. The crowding out is less likely to happen during the deep recession since the private sector investment is already minimal. Now, during the recessionary period, it's only mainly the government expenditure that is going to be there, right? So the private sector investment is already minimal. So in that minimal investment, what the crowding out will be there? He says less likely to happen. Clear? So this is an important topic for 2 to 3 marks. This is an important from examination marks, examination point of view. And it has been asked in the past also. It has been asked, right? So with this, we complete this chapter of fiscal policy. The next chapter, and with this, we have completed one particular unit number 2 of the ICAI module also, right? So the next chapter that will be starting in the next lecture is money demand, another very interesting chapter, I would say, very important. Yes, that's very important because there are various theories of the demand, money demand, right, that we have to discuss. But this is very interesting chapter, right? So we'll start it in the next lecture. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy, keep studying, keep sharing. Thank you so much.